There were about 250 missionaries in our mission. And I remember thinking, why am I important? If I'm not here, somebody else is going to fill my spot, and they'll probably do a better job than me.
But I think that's not necessarily the point. There are people that we can touch, just by being ourselves.
YOMO, you only mission once. How do you really get the most out of your mission?
I think if I could only say one thing to kind of boil it down, I would say just...
So the first question I have for you, Hannah, is if you only had one thing to say to somebody about the mission, like one bit of advice, what would it be?
I was thinking about that on the way over. That's so hard. I think if I could only say one thing, if I have to boil it down, I would say just follow the Spirit, because every mission's going to be different. Like, I'm hoping my advice will resonate with people, but at the end of the day, everyone will have a different experience because we're all unique children of God. And so just, kind of tying in with that, like, be yourself and follow the Spirit is what I'd say.
I think that's really good because that'll translate to any area that you're in. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you've said before that really resonated with me is to be yourself. And I want you to respond to this, because here's my experience. So when I first made it to the London mission, there were about 250 missionaries in our mission. When I left, there was about 78. So we really had a reduction in the mission, and we still maintained roughly the same, if not a little bit more, baptisms for that area. And I remember thinking, with all of the missionaries that were there, I thought, why am I important? Like, if I'm not here, somebody else is going to fill my spot, and they'll probably do a better job than me, right? That was some real feelings that I had at the time. And so those doubts of, am I even really making an impact, or does this really matter that I'm here? Those thoughts were prevalent. And then I had realized, that's one of the things that makes Christ's atonement so perfect and amazing and miraculous, is that he can take someone like me who may not be just as good as everybody in all of their strengths, because I have my strengths as well, but I'm always comparing my weaknesses to their strengths, right? And just recognizing and realizing what makes the atonement so great is that God and Christ can use me at where I'm at to help those people. And if I wasn't there, perhaps those people would not be the ones who are being introduced to the gospel at that time. And my agency and my choices and my intent for good, miracles can happen out of that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. I think it comes down to, like you said, the atonement of Christ, that, and that's like a main message from my book, that you don't have to be perfect to serve, to help people like Jesus Christ does, take us where we are and meet us. And I also talk about, I have a whole chapter on comparison, because it's so easy, to be like, oh, they're such a better missionary.
Well, it is, because you see everybody else's strengths. You're like, wow, that was really good.
Yeah, and honestly, I relate to that too. Like, I was so awkward. I still am sometimes. So, like, I was not like the best missionary on paper. But I think that's not maybe necessarily the point. Like, I really think, the missions are also for us to grow. But also, like, God puts us in a certain mission with a certain companion at a certain time. And there are people that we can touch, just by being ourselves. And that's what I think I learned, too, on my mission. Like, that I don't have to be some Barbie missionary robot, as I call it, because I really think God puts people in our path that we are meant to touch. Like, I noticed that with my companions and I. Sometimes we'd visit someone and they really resonate with my companion, and sometimes they resonate more with me, or I just think, and sometimes it's not going to be like, oh, baptism every day or something.
Oh, right.
But, it could mean a lot that we lifted someone's spirit for a day or helped serve them. So, and I think there's a lot of power in being yourself, because, you're not going to be perfect, but when you're yourself and you're genuine, like, that allows other people to be genuine, and then you are able to connect more with people.
I really love that, because seeing that we both served in European missions, you're not going to always see the tremendous amount of baptisms, even though it can be very fruitful. In fact, I remember going out thinking I'll probably have one baptism, and Europe's just not that. You can bring a lot of people to the gospel, and I'm thankful for that. But yeah, there's just so much that can be done, and I'm just thankful. I'm thankful that I had that opportunity for growth. That I can make a difference, even though I may not have these strengths as somebody else. And all the years after my mission, you can actually see those seeds that were sown, where you sometimes look back and you think, oh, well, I had no idea that person would end up joining the church. That surprises me. And yet they feel connected to you, even though they had additional sets of missionaries that they also feel connected to. In fact, I have to tell a quick story. I had an old man come and visit my home after my mission, and I had taught his granddaughter, and she wasn't baptized either while I was there, but shortly after. And he ended up coming to America and bringing his granddaughter and a couple other grandchildren with him. And it's custom. Maybe Germany's the same way, but in England, it's customary to offer people a drink at all times. If you knock on the door and if you're there longer than 5 seconds, they'll offer you a drink. And coffee and tea is a big one in England. And so this guy, this granddad, we call him granddad, grandpa, was serving or came and visited us in my parents' home and was staying in their home. And he came upstairs and he asked my mom, do you have any coffee or tea for me this morning? And I was so embarrassed that he even had to ask for a drink. And we should have offered him a drink. And my mom said, oh, let me teach you about the word of wisdom. And I was like, what are you doing? Don't do this. I was so embarrassed that my mom was going to teach him right then about the word of wisdom. So she took him out of the kitchen into the living room. And this is a good example of just be yourself, because this is just who my mom is. And she means it in a loving and caring way. It's not this judgmental way, but she wants to be able to bless other people's life with the joy that she has. Mm-hmm. So she teaches him right out of Doctrine and Covenants 89. And I am in the other room sweating bullets. What are you doing to poor granddad? And he comes back in and they get juice or something for a drink and they have breakfast. And I'm just like, Mom, don't do that. Well, anyway, about 3 months later, he's home, long gone, back in England. 3 months later, we get a phone call on the voicemail, the family home voicemail. And it's granddad. And he says, hey, I just want to let you know I haven't had tea or coffee ever since that day you taught me. And I've been learning from the missionaries. And I have a baptism date set.
Oh, wow.
And I am very happy and thankful that you took that time. So here was something that to me was completely taboo and completely against the culture of England. And I was so embarrassed, but because my mom had that opportunity to swallow her pride and follow the Spirit at a time she felt like she just wanted to be her. And she felt like the Spirit told her that tremendous things happened in his life. He's still he ended up passing away, but he ended up serving in the temple as a temple worker for the whole rest of his life. He was older, but he still had roughly 10 years or so that he served. And that to me was just one of those examples of, wow, you can really be, I need to be more like that, even though sometimes it's hard to do, or you think that is against the culture, don't do that. Yeah. But sometimes when God speaks and we obey, we're always going to be right.
Yes.
Regardless of how it's accepted.
Yeah, to follow those little promptings, little pushes from the Spirit. Yeah, that's an amazing story.
All right, so tell me some more stories about so you have so much incredible advice about how to just live a good mission. YOMO, you only mission once. How do you really get the most out of your mission?
So I guess to kind of boil it down from what I talk about, a few of the main things I talk about how to get the most out of your mission, like we've been talking about, be yourself, embrace who you are, discover your strengths. Another big thing is, not to compare. And also this idea that you don't have to be perfect, because I think we get in our heads that we need to be in. And I think we need to remember the Savior's grace. And so that's part of it. And then another thing is like to know that you can have fun and be obedient. Like my dad gave me a lot of advice. He had wrote this letter for my mission anyway, but he talked about how like, yes, we're here to serve and work, but also, we're meant to have joy. Like we're children of God. So I think there are a lot of ways where you can have joy, have fun, and also be working hard. And I think that's a great way to live up your mission, is to have fun and joy while serving.
I really love that because it's true. You need to, living the gospel of Jesus Christ is exciting, and there's a lot to be happy about. Okay, so what were some of the hard things on the mission? Like what were some of the stumbling blocks where you experienced some growth?
Well, for me, a big thing was I felt like I was, I don't know, maybe that's cocky to say, spiritually prepared in the sense of like I had read scriptures, whatever.
I actually read the Book of Mormon.
I don't know, but I wasn't perfect in that area. But I felt like secure in my testimony, but I wasn't necessarily as confident socially. I was shy. It was like kind of scary talking to people. And then maybe being in Europe, I don't know, I felt like people usually, they were pretty blunt if they weren't interested. So just learning kind of more social skills was a big thing for me. So it's kind of that social growth. So I talk about in my book, I think it's really important to be prepared not only spiritually, but socially, mentally, physically as well. And then honestly, another part was just adjusting to the rules and to the schedule, because I had done college before that, kind of used to doing my own schedule, my own thing. And so, learning to be humble, like, oh, we are supposed to go to bed at this time, or
that was one of the hardest things for me, especially with P-Day. It was like, how come I only have like from 10 to 6 p.m. as P-Day? That's not very many hours, especially if you don't have a car to get around.
Yes. Yeah. So adjusting to things like that, and learning to be more obedient took time. So.
All right. What's something that you feel like you'd want to share? And let me actually give you some context on this. So my current calling right now in my ward is a bishop, and I have two sisters in our ward that have just applied for missions. One of them has received her call and actually just spoke last Sunday, and she's going to go to Brazil. One of them is just finishing the application process, and she's going to go. And from my perspective, I look at these sisters. I have this old mindset that it's like, oh, all the elders are, this is a commandment for us. And so you kind of get people that all over the spectrum where it's like, well, I'm going because my mom and dad are telling me to go. And then you have others that are like, well, I'm going because I really have caught the fire early. And there can be good that comes out of both of those scenarios. Mm-hmm. But the sister missionaries, it always seems like they're much more in that they've caught the fire, they've caught that light, they're ready to share. So I guess with that context, like what can we learn from this?
For sisters. I do think like with the decision-making process for women, I do think often women are more intentional since it is more of this kind of invitation, I guess. So I talk about that a little bit in my book, kind of my story of deciding to serve, because I didn't like grow up being like, oh, I definitely want to serve. I just kind of felt it a little later on in college. And so kind of my advice with sisters like deciding to serve, like be prayerful about it. And it's also kind of like your desires, and you can take that to the Lord and get confirmation. And also that like, you don't have to serve a mission to be a good person or a good disciple. Like we all have different paths. So I think it's important to just, do what you feel is right for you.
Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my previous question because I kind of derailed this a little bit. What are some things that you feel like you want to talk about or discuss?
Oh, yeah. So one story I talk about in my book. I have a section on working with members because I think that's a really important thing. I kind of talk about my mistakes with it, but it was kind of funny. So context, it was near the end of my mission, and kind of in the middle of my mission, I had been struggling a little bit. I was kind of in my head a lot, a little discouraged, and so I maybe wasn't as focused as I should have been. So now I was near the end of my mission. I really wanted to use my time well, that was my mindset. I was in my YOMO transfer, like to live it up. But we had a ward member. He was really kind. He kept inviting my companion and I to play soccer. And soccer in Germany is a big deal. But I kind of felt guilty because I love sports. And I was like, oh, maybe that's too much fun for me. Like, maybe we should just be out finding people on the street. So I kind of just told him, like, oh, we'll go sometime. But I wasn't really planning on it. But after maybe a month of this, my companion's like, I think we should go. So I was like, okay, let's go do soccer. So it was like one Saturday morning, me and my companion, we go there. And there was a lot of men from the ward and then some non-member friends, some younger boys. And we just played a pickup game of soccer in this field.
It was just the two girls?
Oh, yeah, we're the only girls there. So girl power. But yeah, I love sports, but I'm more of a basketball girl, so not the best at soccer. But we played hard. Not the best. There was one point where I accidentally side tackled an old man. It was mostly an accident.
Did you just do air quotes? Accidentally.
I get pretty competitive with sports. But anyway, so I got a little banged up, but it was fun. Scraped up. Anyway, but yeah, fast forward to my last week in this area. This member, he came up to me and he was like, Sister Shoaf, like, I had been really disappointed in you that you kept saying you'd come play soccer and you weren't coming. But he was like, I really appreciate that you did come, and here's like a magnet to remember our city by, and it was really nice. So I just learned from that experience a couple things that I talk about with my book of like, one, like it's possible to have fun and be doing good work, because in this case, going and doing that soccer, it was building a relationship with the members. And then second, that, you need to keep your word, like say what you're going to say and do what you say you're going to do. And so, yeah, it was just a lesson of like, that's how we can build trust with the members, is keeping our word. And sometimes, yeah, we get in our head of like, this is what we should or shouldn't be doing. But if we follow the Spirit and things, we'll kind of know how we should be using our time as well. So yeah, more like a cautionary lesson, like, be careful with playing sports and, don't just say you're going to do something, don't do it. Like, it's really important to keep your word and build that relationship with members, because then they'll trust you and you can do more missionary work together.
So talk a little bit about the Barbie mentality. Okay. Like help illustrate what that looked like to you, and then what the difference is or the progress you made through that.
So I kind of had this idea throughout my mission, especially at the beginning, that I needed to be what I call a Barbie missionary robot. I just had this idea of like, oh, sister missionaries are really kind and angelic, and they're so good socially, and I felt inadequate anyway, and they're just always so pretty and kind, and I don't know, good at cooking, whatever it is. I don't know. But I just realized, like, you don't have to be like a cookie cutter version of a missionary. Like, You're not supposed to be a robot. You are, supposed to be yourself, and you're actually more successful when you're yourself, because that's when you're genuine, it allows others to be genuine, and you just have more fun. I think things come more natural. And so I think we do get this idea, maybe even in the church in general, of like, oh, this is what a good woman is and looks like. But there's like a billion different ways to do good and be good. So we don't have to put ourselves in a box. And I think that can be really freeing. And of course, we need to still improve, do our best to improve our character and things. But there really is a lot of power in being yourself and embracing who you are.
Can you think of an example of when being yourself made a positive impact for yourself and those around you?
Yeah, I think in general, just being myself, I did feel more natural, which actually made me be less awkward and connect to people, because I always thought, oh, you need to be super polished, but that approach never worked. But yeah, I talk about it in my book. I think you just had read about this, but during my mission, the Freiberg Temple in Germany was being rededicated, I think for the second time. But us sister missionaries we were helping like lead the tours and things. And so there was a tent outside the temple. People, after they had gone through the temple, would come and ask us further questions if they wanted. And one woman, was talking to me and just curious to get to know, like, what's an American missionary doing here? And then I kind of like broke script, and then I was like, oh, I love the castles. And I was like, oh no, was I being too myself? Like, was that too much? But it seemed to really connect us more, that I was being authentic and enjoying her culture. So
let's say that you have only 3 tips to give somebody. what would those 3 tips be?
Okay, like to prepare for a mission.
Either prepare, so any of the above. Maybe we could do this 3 different ways. So prepare, on, and after.
Okay. So to prepare for a mission, first thing I would say is, again, you don't have to be perfect. Like, you don't have to know everything about the gospel. Just having a desire to serve is really the most important. And you will, it's important to prepare what you can prepare, but you will learn so much on your mission that you don't have to be like perfectly prepared. Is one thing I'd say. And second, if there are specific things you do want to do to prepare, I think the biggest thing is just to really like understand yourself and maybe take steps to do like one physical, spiritual, social, mental preparation for your mission, I think is what I would say. Yeah.
And then what about on and then after?
On your mission, I think a big thing is just learning the language of the Spirit, like learn how the Spirit speaks to you and keep striving to follow the Spirit. Because sometimes, maybe it is appropriate to go do that sporting event with a member, but maybe other times there's other ways you can use your time. So just kind of learning how the Spirit speaks to you and following that. I think a second thing I would say is don't compare yourself to other missionaries, or try not to. We all do it. But just to really be confident in who you are and get to know your strengths. And then a third thing I would say is just to remember that this is advice from my dad that I loved, that, you're not the one converting people, it's the Spirit. And so you can be doing everything right, and you may not necessarily get baptisms because it's God's work. People have agency. So just do your best to teach and to bring the Spirit. And if people are ready, that's going to touch their hearts.
I think that's one thing, one eternal truth that I have really learned after my mission is... I mean, not after. Hopefully, it's just so long ago, I can't always remember when I learned these, when I'm learning these things. But that it is the Spirit that converts people. And I've learned that when I feel prompted to say something, to say to somebody, I just say it, and you hope for the best. Sometimes people are going to react in a negative way. Most of the time, people react in a very positive way. But I have learned that I can be confident in those impressions, that as President Monson used to say, when God speaks and man obeys, that man will always be right. We will always be right when we're following the Spirit. And so it's the Spirit that converts people, and I don't have to be perfect or as polished. Sometimes my very first time sitting behind the desk of a bishop, I was like, what do I do? I have no idea what to do. It's day one. It's Father's Day. You sit behind the desk and it's like, how do I help these people? And I've learned a really sincere truth throughout that process, that the Spirit is there to guide and direct, and Christ is very well aware of his people and how to succor them. Mm-hmm. And if I can just put away that prideful side of, I need to know everything, or I need to feel polished, or I need to be a certain way, and just be humble with the process, create space for the Spirit to be able to come and to guide, then miracles happen, and they really, really do. And I bring that up. I think the reason why I'm bringing up some of these things is because when I was first called, my mom said, 2 weeks later, like, how do you feel being a bishop? And honestly, it's kind of awkward in a lot of ways, because I've always tried to magnify my calling no matter what I'm in. Right before this, I was in primary music as a music leader and absolutely loved it. I hope I get to go back one day. But I said to my mom, I feel like a missionary again, because there's this really true sense of you are bringing people to the iron rod on a regular basis. And though all callings get to do that to a degree, there's something very special with bishop and with missionaries, that they get to see that firsthand, and they get to see the way the atonement works in people's lives. That is just extremely, extremely powerful. And and I will miss that part of the calling. That part of seeing how that conversion process happens because of the Spirit is absolutely awe-inspiring to witness on a regular basis.
Yes, yeah. I think that's definitely one of the most magical parts of the mission, just to see people change and to see, to feel the Spirit so strongly and be able to help people.
Do you feel like on your mission you actually saw that conversion process, that change in people?
Yeah, I think I did. I think, not necessarily in large numbers, but I think with the individuals we taught, because I kind of had different areas. We had different people at different levels. Like I saw people, right before they were baptized. We also did like new convert lessons where they were just so excited to soak up everything about the gospel. I remember one family from China, they had just been baptized and were so eager to learn. And it was really inspiring to see their humility. And it was amazing to see people on all parts of the path. So
I really like that. I think that's one thing that I've oftentimes thought about as we've seen a massive kind of divide during the COVID years in the church. And right now there's record numbers being baptized in the church. I think 308,000, which is more than we've ever had. There's 20% growth in the United States now, as well as Africa and South America. In fact, it was Elder Cook who just gave 2 weeks ago or so, just gave this seminar. My in-laws were called to be mission leaders in Oklahoma. And so this was one of those stats that the church is growing at a rapid rate. But that's one of the things that as I saw so many people kind of separating themselves from the church, I would always go back to and I would think, I saw so many people's lives converted and changed, their hearts that were just moved into a much better place, that it's just something I couldn't do. I saw the fruits in such a powerful way that to me, I just, there's no way I could leave from that or change, because it's like Peter says in the New Testament, to whom shall I go? Or what is better? Show me what is better that has better fruits. And I just haven't really found that.
Yeah, I love that scripture you mentioned where, I think it's Peter, right, where he's saying, like, to whom shall we go? Like, you have the words of eternal life, you're the salvation, speaking to the Savior. I love that. And I think on your mission and after your mission, throughout your life, when you have these experiences with the Spirit, I think it's really special. And I think the Savior also has a lot of grace and mercy, maybe for people, or if we know friends who have, chosen other paths, whatever. I think there's a lot of grace too.
So for any sisters out there who are feeling like they may or may not want to serve a mission, kind of on the fence, what would you say to them?
That's a great question. Again, I think it's your choice. I think that's a really important thing. Like, there can be all these influences like, all your roommates are going, for example, or something. But a lot of roommates are going. I have never
thought that. That's funny.
I don't know. Or
from a sister's perspective, I could see that.
Yeah, that there are like, at least when I was at BYU, like a lot of women were serving, but you don't have to go just because everyone else is. I think my advice would be to think about why you do want to serve. If you would like to serve, kind of think about those reasons. And if you have a testimony and you really want to share it, like, I think that's a really awesome desire, and you can go to the Lord and ask if it's the right path for you. Also, for me, I'm a really indecisive person, really literal. Sometimes I want to be told exactly what my path is. So I remember when I was praying about going on a mission, like, I wanted God to just tell me, yes, go on a mission, or no, don't. Like, I wanted God to tell me what to do, but I learned that, like, I had to make a decision first. And then when I finally had chosen it for myself and then went to God in prayer, he was able to confirm, like, yes, the mission's right for me in my case.
That's a great lesson to learn.
So you got to be willing to make that choice. And sometimes I just wanted to know exactly what I should do, but God trusts us too as well. So we can bring our desires to him, and he can, confirm that path for us.
Are there any other last stories or thoughts you want to leave before we end?
I'm trying to remember everything.
And we can be repetitive. It's okay, since there's just snippets.
Yeah. I think too, my main thing with my book, like it's definitely for sister missionaries. I want sisters to it's kind of two parts was my goal. One, I wanted sisters to be aware of like a mission is hard, like that's the truth. And sometimes I wish, people would have told me that more. Because you just hear the stories of like, yeah, I was knocking all day and then baptism, but like there are hard days. And so I wanted sisters to read my book and kind of be aware of what they should prepare for, to prepare, like I said, physically, mentally, spiritually. And then, but also I wanted sisters to read my book and feel, the excitement, the joy of serving. Because missions really are amazing. There's times you feel the Spirit so strongly, and when you're helping other people come to Christ, and in those hard times, you can turn to the Savior, and He will help you become better, help you find joy in the mission. So those are a couple things. And then whether women, whether you serve a mission or not, just to remember that you're a daughter of God. Like I really want women to read my book and feel empowered, whether they served or if they're remembering their mission, just for women, to really know their worth and to maybe come closer to Christ by reading my book.
Love that. Thanks. I used to always think that missionaries who would say, that was the best 2 years or 18 months of my life, like, you are so lying. Because it's like going to the gym and you're exercising and it's hard work and you're thinking, this is not fun whatsoever. And then you see the results afterwards and you're thinking, okay, that was worth it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I always feel like that side of it's the best 2 years of my life is almost the part that gets so much emphasis that you think when you're out there and you have those hard days or those frustrating times or everybody's yelling at you or you feel like nothing good came out of today, that you're just thinking, how is this any good? Like, am I really wasting my time? Because that's a mission. There really is a lot of effort and seed sowing that sometimes you just feel like, did I do any good today? Was anything positive? Did anything positive come out of today? And I think at the very least, you can have the growth. Your companion that you're with can have growth. At the very, very least, you're affecting both yourself and your companion. And then oftentimes the members who are around you, there's growth. One of my very favorite things was in my Greenie area, me and my companion whitewashed. He was just an AP, and this was his last YOMO area, as you put it, his last area. And he and I both had a talent of singing, and so we sang "Near My God" at this member's house. And little did I know, this member, she was probably 65 at the time. She had sung or served a mission way back when, and she was so touched that the doors opened rapidly because she spread around to the whole ward. These missionaries are good missionaries.
Oh, that's awesome.
And years and years later, I happened to be in Israel, and I was sitting in the BYU Jerusalem Center. And if you've ever been there, that is an incredible chapel because you're in stadium seating, and at the back of the chapel, looking behind the podium, is all the archways of windows, and it opens right out on a nice, good view of Old Jerusalem. Oh, wow. So while you're taking the sacrament, you're looking at Old Jerusalem right there. It was such a powerful experience. And so I'm just soaking up this Israel experience, and I turn around in the chapel, and this family is right there from my mission.
Oh, wow.
And another family from the same area right there. And afterwards, we just got to go give them hugs and take pictures and stand outside of the chapel right there in front of Old Jerusalem. And it was just a tender mercy for me to kind of bookend this. Here I started off in this area singing praises in her home. And then now, decades later, singing praises and true worship, looking over Jerusalem. And here they were, right? Just happened to be there in Jerusalem. Such a cool experience.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's amazing.
All right. Hannah, it's good to visit with you. You're amazing. Thank you for your example. I hope a lot of people have the opportunity to read from your book and prepare themselves before, during, or after.
Yeah. So can I speak to the last
Yes, of
story with
course.
like that some days are so hard thing?
Yes, of course.
No, I just had a thought with, because sometimes, during the mission, there are the hard days and you're like, why am I here? Nothing good happened. And I definitely felt that. So for me, what I learned is you're always going to have those hard days, but I had to gradually, like, the more I chose to trust God and to be humble, like, okay, I'll do things your way. I'll try to follow the rules more, or anyway, that really, my attitude did kind of help even when things got hard. But you will still have hard days. But something that I did that I think might be beneficial is I had a tender mercy journal. So every day, regardless of if it was a bad day, I would write down one positive thing that happened, one blessing, or one tender
That's
mercy
good.
from God. And, at the beginning of my mission, when I was struggling more, it just would say, oh, I ate a really good chocolate bar. But I love chocolate, so it was a good thing. But then later on, as I opened myself up more to the process and trusting God, it was about stories, the people we met that day, who we taught. And so I would also just say, be patient with yourself. Like, you don't have to be that golden missionary right, day one. Like, I thought I had to be like perfectly converted, but you don't, because it's a lifelong process. And so, just do your best and have fun with it.
Absolutely.